we have Phil Cruver, reimagining the Seaplant industry. Phil, I don't want to butcher the KZO Sea Farms.
KZO, yeah, KZO.
Oh, KZO Farms, okay, received the first permit to construct an aquaculture facility in the US and is now introducing its innovative offshore farming technology for modernizing the artisanal tropical sea plant industry. So Phil, all yours.
Okay, first of all, apologies for putting that slide up. This is very new to me, so let me see if I can make it work this time. All right. Is that working, Julie?
We have it, thank you.
All right, good. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Peter and Julie, for the opportunity to present here at the Wall Street Green Summit. Let me go through, I thought I'd have the slides that would give a little bit more background. One thing, Julie, is a little bit different. I didn't get the first permit, or KZO Sea Farms. By the way, KZO means nothing. It was the only way to get a URL today. But we didn't get the first permit in the United States, but in US federal water. So it was actually done by KZO Sea Farms, a company I own. Then I transferred it to Catalina Sea Ranch, which developed the first aquaculture facility 6 miles offshore of Huntington Beach. So that was the background. So let me get into this, more of the background. Yeah, so let me see here so I can read this. Okay. You'll see that I'm using Seaplant rather than seaweed. I think weed just has a negative image, and the remarkable capability of sea plants for food and other valuable products. I hate to hurt it with that word weed, so I use Seaplant all the time. So the background, as I mentioned, is that well, Catalina Sea Ranch got the 25. Well, it was a contract with RPE. That's part of the Department of Energy. This was 4 years ago. And this was to develop a macrocystis offshore farm in California. It was $25 million of taxpayers' money to start a seed plant industry for the United States, and it's still ongoing in phase 2. So that was kind of my introduction to, I was a principal investigator because I was CEO of the company and the founder. But then what really got me excited about the opportunity is last year, the Inter-American Development Bank hired me as a consultant. I'm not a consultant, but they wanted a business guy. I've had a lot of startups because they just didn't want to report that someone files away in a cabinet. So I came up with a business plan, but then I discovered a really amazing thing, that the sea plant industry, the tropical, I should say, tropical sea plant industry, mostly, let me hit the next, of which 99% is in Asia, and it's still artisanal. It's been around 30 to 40 years, and they're still, it's in the tidal zone. They have the farmers going out, tying the propagules onto these lines. When they harvest them, they untie them. There's no automation at all, and I was absolutely astounded. I say there's got to be a better way. So, little background is that KZO Sea Farms, before I got diverted with Catalina Sea Ranch in 2012, we developed a sea cage that was made out of the same type of technology. It could be submerged for tropical areas. We were going to do fish farming for cobia. And but then I got diverted until just 2 years ago with Catalina Sea Ranch, with the first aquaculture facility in US federal waters. But then as a result of this Inter-American Development Bank project in Belize, I said, why can't we just take the technology and use it for sea plants rather than for cage farming? So that's kind of the background. This shows the location of Catalina Sea Ranch's farm. Is 100 acres. It's going to scale to 3,000 acres. Lots of issues we'll go into, but all the lessons that we learned with seaweed farming lessons, offshore lessons, 6 miles offshore, even though we have very benign sea conditions off Southern California, if there's days out there that you just don't want to go out. Maybe it could last for at least a week. So anyway, I learned a lot from that. But then also we had $1.3 million in SBIR contracts. We were working with bivalves. all these, I think, lessons that could be applied to a seaplant industry for the tropical sea plant. Another thing I found out that really kind of galvanized my interest was a research report from Indonesia, one of the largest producers of sea plants for the carrageenan industry. And they started putting them in cages. This was like 5 years ago. And they got a lot better, these are the data out of their research over 5 years, over a 50% increase in growth. And it seems to make sense, but nobody's adopted it yet. So he said there's a great opportunity here to transform the sea plant industry. So these are illustrations that we've come up with using the cage, we call it the farm system. The series of these, the critical component of it, because it's a no starter if you can't submerge the cage. As an example, about 5 months ago, an investor called me and he said, very interesting what you're doing, Phil, particularly in the Caribbean. I think there's no aquaculture capability at this point. But what are you going to do about hurricanes? Don't you remember New Orleans? Well, the answer here is that with a couple days notice or even a day's notice, you could open up the valves, as big pipes, HDPE, that's high density polyethylene pipes. They will fill with seawater and submerge the technology. And as you may know, that the further you go down in the sea, the less energy, it's exponential. So you don't need to go down much more than 50, 60 feet. Then after the storm or the hurricane, the typhoon, the month, whatever it happens, goes by, then you just take a scuba tank, and push it in the valve, and the air, compressed air, pushes out the seawater, and the technology will come back to the surface. So you could read on the side here, but a couple of things I see is really important. One is submersibility, because it's a no starter without that. But second of all, because of global warming, all the areas I'm talking to, whether it be in Asia, Philippines, Indonesia, the Caribbean, in Zanzibar, Simon, we're meeting with the Minister of the Blue Economy there in Zanzibar, and they're really having problems because the ocean water is getting warmer, and it causes disease. It's called ice with the tropical sea plants. And so being able to submerge and go down to colder, towards the thermocline, really increases the growth and reduces disease. But we want to study this, all the abiotic factors, not just for the biomass, for the volume of biomass, but the quality of the biomass. What ingredients in there do we really want to focus on and harvest? For instance, with macrocystis, the kelp that we worked with, they have alginate, and it fluctuates 30 to 60% depending on the season. So maybe the right time to harvest isn't 42 days because you want the right biomass. You want the quality of the yield or the certain ingredient. So you may want to harvest it in 20 days. Lots of opportunities for research. And the last thing that's really important is a chain of custody. No one's going to eat sea plants it's 168 dietary in the supplement market. If it comes from China, where they have coal and they got mercury in the water, even today with all the sea plants in the other areas, whether it be the Philippines or even Zanzibar, they do it. The lines, they tie it onto plastic bottles with plastic waste, but also microplastics get into the food. So that's a no starter too. So anyway, the benefit of this is that with these cages, we could record, we could watch, and then document a secure chain of custody when that sea plant was harvested and all the way through the supply chain. So lots of opportunities for the tropical sea plant industry as a artisanal industry that needs to be modernized. That's why we're trying to reimagine it. Not so much of a focus on Asia, they're pretty much wed to their ways, but lots of opportunities in Caribbean where nothing starts, and we have got a great warm welcome from Tanzania and Zanzibar. So here's the area I think you want to talk to at this meeting. I'll try to go through it very quickly. Next Thursday, I am giving a presentation at the North American Carbon World, and it's about blue marine credits. There's nothing like that now. Well, just recently, Vera some of the other registry, they're starting to look at the potential. They've certified mangrove and looking at marsh grass and seagrass, but nobody's doing anything right now with either sea plants or kelp. So I think it's a big push that I'm going to try to use. But the beauty of this technology is that it's traceable. You know, having the ability to account for the sea plant and the amount of carbon sequestration, you know, to account for that. That's going to be a very big issue in the future. It's not going to happen very quickly. So anyway, these are some of the numbers I came up doing some of the research. The voluntary carbon markets, I've seen everything from 50 billion to 100 billion. But one thing that just to kind of conclude everything is, you know, that someone's got to really look at these words, additionality and permanence. To me, they're kind of arbitrary. They're going to cause a lot of problems. It's kind of like I'm a self-professed expert in patent law. I do a lot of patents. I got some, and I love writing them. But it's kind of like for a patent, it has to be new, useful, and non-obvious. Well, who is the person that says it's non-obvious? You know, that's a big issue, and that's going to hold up, I think, the blue carbon credits, because developers, investors, they're going to say, what does this really mean? Additionality and permanence. So that's got to be, I think, clarified to untap or unleash these private sector markets, public sector markets, in order to have a massive sea plant industry. So, did I do it in time here? Yeah, that's got 9 minutes left for questions and answers.
You're good. You're good. This is really fascinating. So you had mentioned a $10 billion industry. What is the market and here in the U.S. Because you're not looking at Asia?
So the market, Julie, is it's $10 billion. So that's agar and carrageenan. Carrageenan is the big one. It's a substance or emulsive that you use in the United States. If you go to the grocery store, a lot of people say non-carrageenan because some people think it's cancerous, but the FDA has not said so. So it's for carrageenan, and but the market it's global. It's $10 billion. It's a huge market, and it's all being supported. All of it, 100% is by drudgery of labor. Artisanal people walking out when the tide goes out and planting, and when it comes back in and harvesting. It's just it's an industry that's ripe for innovation.
Wow. We have a question that came in about the impact of this type of farming on the local ecology, the sea life. Can you speak to that?
Yes, there's a lot of work that's going on. I know about it in Belize because of that consulting gig I had, but the Nature Conservancy's there. They've been working for years. And they're very careful, because you don't want to do this where you have coral reefs. That's another beauty of this technology. You go further offshore, so there's no conflict with tourism. All these places are great diving spots and so forth, and no conflicts with the coral reefs. Go out a little bit further, and you have to finally pick those. But anyway, they're finding that it's like the technology, they're doing it with bamboo rafts, very primitive stuff. And in some cases, it really acts as like an aggregator to attract the fish, because they like habitat. And we found that with our mussel farms offshore California. Oh, it was the hottest fishing area in all Southern California, because the mussels were draped in there in 150 feet of water. The small fish came in. The yellowtail would come in just in droves and try to get the fish. So at one time, there was over 200 boats right on our 100 acres out there.
That's amazing.
So it could be positive, could be negative, but it has to be rigidly taken, really watched.
Yeah. And Simon pointed out that they are hoping Value Nature that the biodiversity tokens could be applied to marine environments as well.
And this just happened because of our work we had a meeting last Thursday with the ministry, Blue Economy Ministry in Zanzibar. And I couldn't believe they were saying, oh, we're thinking about mud crabs and all these other archaic. I said, there's no market for it. But there is, I think, the potential for bivalves. So, you know, if you have the Seaplants and the bivalves together, they're synergistic. They work on one's inorganic or picks up the inorganic waste, one's pick up the organic waste. So that's another potential. And there's a big market for bivalves, for oysters and mussels, where we have deep experience. So it won't be a monocrop. We want to start off and try to find higher value for them. They can't compete with the Asians at 50 cents a pound, dry pound for the carrageenan market. But for the dietary and supplemental market, where 90% of the profits are on the tail end. So they've got to be able to process it and package it and sell it from these areas.
That is a good segue into a question that just came in about concern for plant aquaculture.
I'm sorry, what kind?
Plant aquaculture. We talked about sea life, but any effect on other plant aquaculture in that environment?
Well, the principal risk is with the coral reefs, which is, you know, it's devastating. So it has to be away from the coral reefs. And we're projecting the best area would be in less than 70 feet of water, because when you go over 70 feet, then you got to use NOx and all that. So as long as you have scuba divers, we got to train the women how to be scuba divers. In Belize, by the way, it was the same thing. It was a co-op owned and managed by women, and all 7 of them were trained or, you know, certified scuba divers. So that's going to be an important part.
Interesting. Another question came in about the industrial look of the layout and the concept. Has that been, you know, considered? Absolutely.
And that's why it has to be further offshore. That was a big deal up in California, where you have, you know, multi-million-dollar mansions. They don't want to be looking at it, people, you know, harvesting and all that stuff. So the further offshore you go, the better off it is, as long as you meet certain criteria. And there's so much land out, or so much sea space out there, we'll be able, through marine spatial planning, to find the locations that are optimum without any conflict with sea plants, tourism,
interesting. And Michelle has a question about abalone from Namibia.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Phil. Hi there. I was just very intrigued about this whole thing because I've just been asked to be a consultant for Namibia on taking abalone. We've already done lots of export of fish to the US, but especially abalone is, you know, a very controversial thing around the world. But we have a farm in Luderitz, but it will take like almost 40 hours to get abalone out to the US. You know, we could try certain ways, but, you know, putting it in, I think, tinning it and then maybe drying it at a later stage. But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, we've got the highest oxygenated water here in Luderitz. I don't know if you've done any research on Namibia.
There's a group that's doing kelp, also macrocystis, and they contacted me. So I know it's a major project, but we may think about it some other time. But to answer your question about the abalone, know quite a lot about it. We actually were working with the abalone farm in Goleta, California, about an hour north of where we were in Long Beach, and they've been around for like 20 years, and it's an interesting technology. But theirs wasn't offshore in the water. Theirs was in the recycled RAS system. But again, is your question about the market trying to freeze them or sell them live?
No. The thing is, what is the interest into the American market about abalone? Because it's a freshwater abalone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I know you have a red abalone on the west coast of America, but we have a very unique abalone.
Well, the answer, I think, would be very interested, because the abalone is protected. Well, it's like $1,000 fine if you pick one up. And they used to let them up near the San Francisco area. they could catch them wild. They go out and they're allowed, I think, 3 or 4. They've cut that out. So abalone, particularly the black and the white abalone, are protected, and people love it. Particularly the older generation. They remember going out on the tidelands and just picking up and eat them.
So there is a market.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
we have it. It's it's guaranteed by the government. Yes, it's farmed, but in the natural ocean, so we could actually export it.
And I think it's back a couple of years ago, it was like $20-30 a pound. It's expensive, but I know they're very slow growing too. So. And they
Yes,
very.
There may be some
6
symbiotic
years.
well,
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep us on schedule here for Peter. So thank you all for this great conversation this afternoon. Really appreciate all of your participation, and congratulations on your amazing work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to be here.